Okay, be honest. How many of you knew you could use your 401k to invest in real estate? I didn't. Until very recently. I was just one of those guys where, hey, I'd put money in my 401k when I got paid, kind of shove it over to the side, not care so much, maybe have a plan 30, 40 year out where I'm buying equities, stocks, bonds, maybe some cash, whatever. But I got tired of watching my 401k kind of stagnate in a low interest account where I'm not really making that much. You can use your 401k to invest in real estate. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to show you how to do it. So if you're looking for a way to grow your wealth and reach some of those retirement goals, not all of them, but some, stick around. So what is a 401k? So a 401k is a retirement plan you probably get from work. You don't get them if you're individually employed. Those are IRAs, which we'll talk about later. But they allow you, an employee, to contribute part of your paycheck to a fund that will someday, hopefully, keep you retired. The great thing about 401k is a lot of times employers will match those, which is great, usually up to a percentage, usually around 6% or so. And the withdrawals are taxed as income, but the money does grow tax deferred over time. So all the money you put in from the time you're 30 to say you're 70, all that grows tax deferred. There are certain tax advantages, like contributions, like I said, are pre-tax dollars. So those are taxed as ordinary income. There's employer matching, flexibility. They offer a variety of investment options, but not a ton, which is why you're here today. And then there's portability. So it's really great when you leave one job, you go to another, which I've done. I've had employers that have sponsored a 401k. I've left, I've moved that over. But some of the benefits of investing in a 401k in real estate is you do have tax advantages, much like you do in regular real estate. You can defer taxes on your investment gains until you withdraw the money in your retirement. Equity, obviously you're building equity in the real estate offering that you're using today. So if it was investing in a house, a REIT, whatever, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you gain equity and appreciation on capital. The third one was appreciation, which I just mentioned. And then the fourth one is diversification. So there are some risks though, real quick, before I go into the different investing options and investing styles I like to use when I'm diversifying my portfolio. There's market risk. So real estate prices can go up and down. That can be an issue. Illiquidity. So real estate isn't liquid. It might take months, even years to get your money back. Where a 401k, you can exit out of the strategy, take your money and go. And then there's also management fees, which you need to be very careful of. So when you invest in a 401k through real estate, your management fees can be something that eat into your profits. And I've talked about that many times here on the channel. So the first one I want to talk about is a self-directed 401k. So a self-directed 401k is a retirement account that allows you to invest in a wider variety of assets than a 401k, including real estate, private equity, even crypto. Probably wouldn't invest your 401k in crypto, but it's something that's certainly there. This gives you more control over your retirement savings and potentially can lead to somewhat higher returns. To do this, you need to find a custodian. So if you look at my screen here, there are certain custodians that can do this. Once you find a custodian, you need to open an account and transfer your 401k to that new account. Once the funds have been transferred, you'll be able to invest in real estate just as you would in stocks. There are some risks though associated with this. You may not have the same level of investment expertise as a professional money manager, so you want to be careful of that. Real quick, one of the self-directed 401k that I've found that I really like, I'll go in a minute, but here on the IRS website, which I'm going to link in the description below, you'll see some of the background and some of the list updates of what you're able to do here. Always consult with the IRS. They're going to be the primary authority here on what you can and can't do from an investment standpoint. Not only but from where you can invest, but management fees, early withdrawals, when you have to start taking distributions, etc. One of the ones I found that I've liked so far is American IRA. I'm going to put that down in the description below. They're a third party, a custodian here that allow you to open up a self-directed IRA or 401k, depending on your situation. Maybe you want to roll over an old 401k into an IRA. You can do that as well. But American IRA is one that I found. They have several different 401k and IRA ability. So maybe it's a SEP IRA if you're individually employed. It could be a solo 401k, self-directed IRA to traditional, whatever. And then they have different investing options here that you see on my screen. So it could be real estate, it could be private lending, private equity, precious metals. You could do private companies like LLCs, single member IRA LLCs, venture capital. I've talked before on this channel about venture capital and investing there. I think this could be a great way, as a lot of people have money put in these retirement accounts. They just kind of shuffle them away, right? It's like, well, it's over there. I put money into it every 2 weeks or every month, and it just kind of goes. I think these self-directed 401ks, these self-directed IRAs, where you have a lot more control over what you want to invest, are going to start becoming very popular as alternative asset classes start to skyrocket. All right, so what are the pros for something like this? Well, you do have more investment options. You can move, you have more control of your retirement, and you potentially have higher returns. The cons, you have more risk, higher cost, more time and effort to require to manage your investments. So if you want a full set it and forget it, probably the traditional 401k, pick a target date fund and go with that. If you want to have more control, that's where a self-directed IRA or 401k in this situation could be very beneficial. All right, so what's a real world example of somebody that wants to go through this? So say John Smith, he's a 35-year-old software engineer. He's been saving for retirement in his 401k for the last 10 years. He's always wanted to own a rental property, but he's never had enough money to save up to put a down payment on it. Recently, John learned about self-directed 401ks, which allow you to invest, like I said, in retirement plans, in real estate. He decided to roll over his 401k plan into a self-directed 401k plan and use the funds to purchase a rental property. Now he's earning passive income from his rental property, and he's on his way to building his financial freedom. Like I said, some of the examples I gave here are American IRA, there's Equity Trust Company, and IRA Financial Group. So that's number one. So think about that. Let's move on. Number two is taking a 401k loan. So you have these 401ks, hundreds of thousands, some people have millions of dollars in their 401k. Can I tap that? Can I use that for a housing project? Can I use it to go buy jewelry? Can I use it for a vacation? So the answer is yes, probably shouldn't, and definitely not. So a 401k loan is another way to use your 401k to invest in real estate to take out a loan. So you're not going to your 401k and saying, hey, I've got $1 million in and I want to take 100,000 out before I'm retirement. You're going to get slammed with penalties. You're going to get slammed with fees. You definitely don't want to do that. So when you don't want to just go pull money out. But what you can do is take a loan, and that allows you to borrow up to 50% of your vested balance up to $50,000. And that's for the United States. If you're in another country, you want to check your tax code. But the loan must be repaid within 5 years, and you will be charged interest on the loan. However, the interest rate's typically lower than the interest rate you would pay on a personal loan. So the interest rate might be 2%, and on a personal loan, it could be 7%. Obviously, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. I'm going to move over here. If you're thinking of taking money out of a 401k, I'm going to link this down below. But some of the pros you can use the money for any purpose, including investing in real estate. The interest rate on a 401k loan is typically lower than the interest rate on a personal loan, like I said. You don't have to pay taxes on the money that you borrow from your 401k account. That's a big one. The cons, if you leave your job before you repay the loan, you may have to pay a penalty. So if you're with employer A and you take out a loan and you leave and go to employer B and you haven't paid off that loan, there may be some penalties there. So if you're about to change jobs and you need to take out a 401k loan, be cognizant of that. Number two, if you don't repay the loan on time, you may have to pay additional interest. So again, you do need to repay the loan. The interest rate's probably lower. And then three, the money that you borrow from your 401k account is not earning interest while you are repaying the loan. So if you're used to seeing your 401k account go up from interest payments, dividends, whatever, that may pause while you've got the loan out. So here's some additional things to consider before you take out a 401k loan to invest in real estate. So you want to make sure you have a solid investment plan, do your research, understand what you're getting yourself into. Make sure you can afford the monthly payments. So those payments will come back as loans. So if you go down here, you can actually see with a 401k loan, you borrow from your investment account, like I said, up to 50% or up to 50,000 or 50% of your savings within a 12-month period. And the payments, as far as how to cover the monthly payments, etc., could be fairly significant. Number three, have a backup plan in case the investment does not go as planned. You may need to sell the property if you cannot make the payments. And like I talked about in point one a minute ago, it's not a liquid, right? Those are things you can't just go, sell and unload like you can with a bond or stock or an ETF or even an index fund. Those things take time to unload, and then you could face additional penalties. One thing real quick here, to go back to what I was talking about from a loan perspective versus a withdrawal. So the loan here in this case, if you look at my screen, you've got a $38,000 account balance in a 401k. I want to take out $15,000 from this 38. If I do a loan, I've still got 23,000 left. But if I go over here to a withdrawal and not a loan, I'll take out the 15. I pay $8,800 in taxes and penalties because again, I'm pulling that money out and saying I'm not going to repay it. I'm just taking it. So that's something you want to be very careful of, as the penalties in this case and the taxes can really leave a hole there. I mean, you're talking 23,000 here to 14,000 over here. And then there's some more info down here that I'm going to link in the description that goes over some of the pros and cons. So what's a real world example of this? So one is John Smith took out a 401k loan to buy a rental property. He was able to use the rental income to pay off the loan and still have positive cash flow. So in that case, if you find the right property and you want to invest in it, it can be very, very prosperous. Number two, Mike Jones used his 401k to invest in a REIT, a real estate investment trust, which I've talked about before. I'll put a link up here to one of my videos that talks about real estate investment trusts, REITs, another name for them. The REIT has been performing well, and Mike has been able to generate a steady stream of income from his investment. So it's a win-win. Again, I caution everyone, make sure you understand what you're investing in, and make sure you understand the pros and cons with all of it. Okay, the last one, rollover IRA. We've all probably heard this before. You've left one company, went to another. You want to do a rollover. What does that mean? So if your employer does not offer a self-directed 401k plan, you can roll over your 401k funds into a self-directed IRA. So not all companies offer this, not all custodians offer this, but once the funds have been transferred to the IRA, you'll be able to invest in real estate just as you would in stocks or bonds. So basically, you're taking a 401k with company A and you're rolling it over into an IRA with company A. You don't have to change companies. You can move it from a 401k to an IRA. And really the big benefit with that is you get to start investing in things that aren't stocks, bonds, equity. So a couple of the pros, you can use your IRA to invest in real estate assets, including rental properties, commercial real estate, and REITs. Your IRA investments can grow tax deferred, which can help save on taxes. And you can use your IRA to invest in real estate, even if you don't have a lot of money to start with. So again, you don't need $100,000, you don't need $1 million to start. So some of the cons, you may have to pay fees to roll over your IRA to a self-directed IRA. You may have to pay taxes and penalties if you withdraw money from your IRA before you reach retirement age. That's about 70 and a half. So if I move over here, I'm actually going to link this down as well in the description. But this goes over rolling over an IRA. I thought it was a great article from NerdWallet. What are some of your options? And then what are some of the how do you do that? So additional things consider with doing a rollover IRA in real estate. Make sure you have a solid investment plan, like I said. Do your research and understand what you're getting into. Make sure you can afford the monthly payments, because then that will be coming back to you in the form of a payment. And then have a backup plan in case the investment doesn't go well. You may need to sell the property, like we said in the last bullet point. All right, so what are some real world examples here? People have used their 401ks to invest in real estate. A couple off the top of my head. John Smith, he's a 50-year-old man who's been saving for real estate in his 401k for the last 25 years. He's accumulated a significant amount of money in his 401k and he's looking for a way to invest. Totally makes sense. He decides to roll over his 401k into a self-directed IRA. He then uses the IRA to invest in a rental property. The rental property generates positive cash flow and it helps him to reach his retirement goals. So I mean, I think that's great. I think these options should be used as just another tool in the toolbox in order to achieve your financial goals. And the last thing I'll put here is there is a way on Fidelity. Fidelity is one of the retirement brokerages, custodians that I use for some of my retirement options, but they do give you a great way, much like SoFi, much like Charles Schwab, just like anyone who's carrying maybe it's E-Trade as well. Anyone's carrying a retirement account, they typically have very easy ways for you to go in and do a rollover IRA. So whether it's in Fidelity, out of Fidelity, and then you can see the options here. So the last thing I want to mention is make sure you understand again what you're getting yourself into. Make sure you understand the pros and cons of each scenario here. And the last thing I want to mention is if you haven't subscribed, please be kind, hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, and don't forget to design your financial freedom. Take care. Bye-bye.